around. This is quite wonderful, quite different from television. Television has sort of the same rules. It's timed, and you have to do everything in order. Back to Billy Fields, Inside Billy Fields, on his show at Fishbowl Radio. You know what, I really want to know what your thoughts are. You are a parent. So much information, so much going on with education today from the top down. When you go to a parent-teacher meeting with your daughters, what are you expecting? What do you do? What's going through your mind?
Well, I try to stay focused because the educational environments that they're in, there is a lot of, with no disrespect, people with a lot of money, and a lot of the ladies have a lot of time on their hands. So they bicker about things that are important, but not as important to me. I look at that for my kids and me. It's a transition to get to the next level.
Exactly.
So I don't have time to worry about whether I'm going to
the minute things that are being discussed.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. My focus is to make sure that my kids get a global education. I don't want my kids to get. I don't want my kids' education to just limit them to the U.S. or Texas or Dallas.
So you prepare your children for globalization.
Correct.
Do they speak another language?
My kids speak 3 to 4 languages.
Okay. No, that's excellent. Yeah. Why is it important? Now, for the longest, we've had the idea that our children should have to speak 2 languages. Why are your children speaking 4, 3?
Well, why should they not? They're able to go to whatever country they choose to go to within a matter of seconds from the privacy of their bedroom by going to www.whatevercountrytheychoose.com.
Right.
And that what may come up on their system could be in English, it could be in another language. They need to be able to communicate. And also, and that's as an adolescent, that those same principles, I think, apply in business when you think global.
Right.
Globalization, or because of the fact that they are women,
right,
girls,
okay.
Because of the fact that our society teaches them they should be in a
status beneath that.
Correct.
Okay.
And they're Black Americans, so they have to be. It's yeah, absolutely.
But the paramount question on my mind is, are you being a naive parent? Because most of the world's population at 7 billion is poor.
Correct.
So their chances of landing in the areas that you expect them to be in might be slim to none.
Right.
What's your comment about that?
That didn't stop Condoleezza Rice from being who she is and
Condoleezza Rice operated from Birmingham, Alabama to the White House.
Correct.
1 in 10.
Why should we stop there?
Okay. So that's your attitude.
Absolutely.
Do they come in contact with, and the reason we are exploring this part of education is because parents have that idea that my child is going to be at this level. But when we look at the world's population, the world's population is not really preparing the world's children.
Correct.
For that position.
But you know what? There is a small group that is. Okay. For an example, next month she's going to a camp in Austin, and she's going to speak before the state reps and everything at the state capitol. Then there's an international council that she's a part of. Condoleezza Rice is actually a member of that.
Okay.
It consists of a lot of different, it's multiracial. I can't remember the total number of cultures that participate in that group. So they are there. Then there's one that President Eisenhower started called People to People.
Right, and then you have the one that Jimmy Carter started.
Correct. So
Habitat.
Those people usually, those kids are usually the ones that they try to cultivate for those opportunities.
Okay, what do you say to a parent that's listening out there and says, okay, he's an elitist?
Right.
Okay. I'm sure you've heard that word before. They use it quite frequently. What is your definition, and how do you handle that connotation?
Well, if they had no value to my life, and I don't mean, is this maybe wrong?
Oh, it's just a question from Ester Davis.
Esther Davis. If they had no value to my life, they were really insignificant anyway. To say that, I mean, they're saying that. I don't need them, and they probably don't need me. So it's never been anything that held me back. I've always had people throw stones at me like that, even since I was a child. That's something that most young black men have to deal with, just being black in America. whether you, I mean, because oftentimes we're looked at, especially, and I've not been one of those guys, but if you're big, they're gonna steer you in the way of, and tall, play basketball or football. You're not valued for your intellectual depth. So those people that are trying to say that you're something that they think you are, they think you're not, or,
doesn't make you
that's them,
that.
right? They don't have, I don't give them that kind of power.
You don't give them that kind of power. And that's a very important statement, because you have to give people the power.
Exactly.
So if you were you an Obama fan?
Yes. I laugh.
This is a wonderful interview, America.
She's smooth. I am a Obama fan. I did vote for Obama. I am a Republican and been a Republican.
I know.
You know
that's why, of course.
I have been a member of the GOP.
You walked right into that.
You teed that up, and that's why I laugh when you ask me. Yes, I have been a member of the GOP since Ronald Reagan. They call us Reagan Democrats.
Okay, but explain to me why a Republican would absolutely vote for a Democrat.
Very good question. Part of the reason why I am a Republican, I'll conclude on that question. And we can go a little deeper if you want to.
Okay.
But I know no other way of explaining it. My father and my parents, although they're Democrats, they raised us, I believe, as Republicans. I've been working to make money ever since I can remember, at least 7, 8 years old. I remember I bought my first Timex watch. It was a bullet point in 1972. Wow. I think I was 8 years old. Wow. And I raised that money, Esther, walking the neighborhoods of my street where people would throw Coke bottles out of their car. I would collect those Coke bottles, and then I had 2 yards that I would have to cut in the neighborhood. Cut those 2 yards, the front, I would, and then Miss Callahan.
Miss Callahan, you still remember the latest name?
Yes,
okay.
She used to pay me $2 to cut the front yard. My daddy gave me $1 a week allowance. I collected maybe $2 or $3 on those soda water bottles. We call it soda water bottle.
Of course, I remember the soda water bottles.
Yeah.
And the 5-cent pickles.
Exactly. So I always had my little hustle going. I used to make popcorn balls with my mother, apple candies, and we used to call them Cool Cups. I'd buy 8-cent pack of Kool-Aid and get some of my mother's sugar, make some Kool-Aid and pour them in those styrofoam cups and put them in the freezer and sell them. Those kids had to have something when they got out of school, so I was at home quick, run home.
To sell this.
Yes.
So you've been selling and forward thinking and doing and earning money
all my life. So, and that came from my parents' discipline. Now, when I went to college, I remember at that time there was 8,000 students, 400 blacks. On Fridays, all the blacks used to get in the courtyard and sing, "We shall overcome," and pray. And I'm like, what are we trying to overcome? And no one really was able to answer that question. So it was during the political season, so they're gonna cut your grant, y'all better hurry and get out of school. All this fire and brimstone and scare tactics. So I would go and listen to what Ronald Reagan was talking about. I said, don't sound like he talking about that. Then this whole Reaganomics things. And I was in school, so you can challenge the system as a college student. They're the ones that make a lot of change, especially them cats in California. So, I mean, I wasn't one of those that would run on the campus nude to try to express my I didn't come from that.
So you actually started listening to the Reaganomics.
Yes.
Early
in life.
Because he was governor of California before he was president.
Correct. And so
that resonated in your spirit
over time, because it's like when I really came into my own self and understanding who Billy was and didn't care what people have to say, I was a closet Republican for a very long time. As a matter of fact, I was a precinct chairman in my district.
As a Republican?
No, I was a Democrat at the time.
But they did not know you were a registered Republican?
What? No. I was registered as a Democrat at the time, but all the candidates that I would vote for really were Republicans. And then I remember Molly Beth Malcolm. She was head of the state Republican. She was Republican chair. I remember in the hotel room, she and I were going back and forth because although I held that position, she was Republican too.
Actually, Ronald Reagan was a Republican when he was president of the GIL.
Right.
And then he made a switch.
Correct.
He didn't, the unions, he made a switch from Democrat to
Republican.
And a lot of people don't know that.
Right.
Okay, but
so he had the right rhetoric to suck me in.
Okay.
And I listened to it and I said, hey, for a very long time, I stood out in the cold, the misty weather like this, because I had to change my political affiliation to get Barack, to vote to get Barack on the ballot when he ran.
You had to change?
I had to change because in the primaries, in the gubernatorial election, in the primaries, either I had to vote for a Republican candidate or I had to vote for a Democrat candidate. But I couldn't vote for a Democrat candidate if I was a Republican.
Have you always been a maverick?
Yes.
That's a maverick move.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I took my kids out of school one day when Barack was here. We met him, we had conversation. Kids
when he was nobody, did not know how to spell his name.
Right.
Okay, all right.
and then when he went on the campaign trail, I mean, all of this. I mean, and I was told back in the 70s by my teacher that a black man would never become president of this country by a white teacher. Now, I'm always on my kids about high achievement, education, all this, Don't you
Irregardless of their skin, the color of their skin.
Correct.
All right. So now you're faced with this dilemma. Is this a dilemma for you?
That was a dilemma because I'm like, do I really want to be a part of that conversation when I'm sitting down at the dinner table with my grandkids and telling them that I didn't vote? That teacher told me that, and I refrain or refuse to vote for him because he's Democrat.
Right.
And we were always told to be the best of the best, regardless of what you choose.
To the universe. Now we're getting to the nuts and bolts of Billy Fields, because a lot of Americans were faced with that. Decision. It wasn't a dilemma. It was a decision that you had to make. But with the decision, you had to do some action.
Correct.
That went with it.
Right. Change my political affiliation.
When did you come out of the closet?
Wow, that sounds frightening. Really.
When did you get terribly comfortable with, okay, my name is Billy Fields and I'm a Republican?
When I started hanging out with Comic Control.
Well, Comic was actually a Republican, and Joe Kervin.
Right.
There are a lot of black, successful African American. But the educational part, do you think the educational part of this decision was paramount, or was just the fact that he was a black man running for president?
No,
now, don't answer that question yet,
okay,
because I want you to think about something. Back to the white woman that told you that. I don't think America thought that we would have a black man as president before a white woman.
Right.
Now I want to hear from you.
Well, one of the reasons, let me qualify, one of the reasons that I voted for him was because he's black.
Okay, number one.
Now,
okay.
But when I was going through the whole process of Romney and Giuliani, and in corporate America, they shoved Giuliani down our throats. He's the guy, you know.
Yeah.
I was in sales then. We bought all these books, especially after 9/11. They bought all these books, and we were giving them out to our sales guys, and we were, Giuliani is the all-time American hero. I'm not saying that he's not. I mean, that's another show. But I ran out of a selection at first because he was the guy, then Romney, and then Huckabee, and then I'm like, these guys, and next thing you know, Barack and Hillary. I'm like, who is this? This guy, he's walking up. I met him before. This guy, look at him. He's with his wife and 2 daughters, and they look like me and my wife and daughter.
Ah, association.
Yes. I started tuning in, and one of the things that I discovered earlier about him when he would speak, instead of listening totally to what he was saying, I was looking for the negative. The only thing I could find out was he would always say,
so the negative was his language was smooth and absolutely rolling off of his tongue, as I like to say. There was no and he didn't spit.
Well, no, he did. He did say quite a bit. He doesn't do it that much. And in Toastmasters, you know, it's forbidden because they blow a big horn. Every time you say it's
okay.
So I'm like, this guy, I mean, he has potential. He's saying some good stuff, you know. I just did it. At that time in Toastmasters, a big horn is blown and everybody's laughing and you're looking befuddled because you just made a mistake.
You lost your train of thought by that time.
Right. So when I weighed the good against the bad, I knew if he became president, they were going to be able to clean that up.
Okay.
Yeah, that became a non-issue. I don't think he says much, if
No,
any
he
at all.
doesn't do it anymore.
Right.
And he uses a teleprompter, but all of that. But I want to switch gears.
I don't have a problem with the teleprompter, but one of the other things, and I'll
A
answer
lot
the
of
next
people
question.
have problems with the teleprompter.
Oh, I use this as a teleprompter, but
You use a
who
teleprompter?
cares? Yes.
Who cares?
Who cares?
Well, no, people care about that because they
he's-
really want to know how you know. They want to know how your brain operates off the cuff.
Right.
You have a teleprompter,
Right.
then you are guided.
Right. I'll put it to you this way. For those that are not in those shoes,
That's a good answer.
they can say what they want to say.
That's a good answer.
The bottom line, he has to represent a level of excellency. There's no room for error. None. Because he's the president of a major superpower. There's no room for error. He has to be at his best at all times. So whether he's standing there reading to his right or his left, he's on point.
He's on point. Let's switch gears. You mentioned 9/11. Where were you on 9/11?
I was in the driveway at my daughter's school dropping her off, and I remember the guy behind me. I didn't expect that. The guy behind me, he said, "Hey, they just ran planes in the World Trade Center." I was stupid. I was looking downtown at I thought it happened in Dallas.
Right,
I'm like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" And so all of a sudden, I dropped my girl off. I didn't think much of it. So I got in the car, and that's all it was. It was a somber day.
Can you believe we're still having this conversation 10, 11 years later?
I know.
And people still have a theory?
Exactly. They do.
How do you get into the conversation, or do you stay out of the conversation?
It depends on who the audience is or who I'm having the conversation with, because that affected the world, and I usually go deep on conversations like that, and most people oftentimes don't want to think because it requires too much energy.
It requires a lot of energy, but just one final question. What are your thoughts on what was done? Was it a brilliant idea? Was it a dumb idea?
I don't believe in war, but I believe that it's maybe necessary. I know that sounds kind of contradictory, but I don't believe in the sacrificing of human lives, whether they're American or not, to justify what took place as being the right thing to do. Those guys that ran those planes into the building were straight thugs. A lot of people, I found even President Bush getting caught up by saying that those guys were not Muslim. I'm one that don't believe that they were Muslim. Islam is a religion of peace. That was rape. That was mad. Yes.
It was madness.
Yes.
All right. We talked about education, but I went to see this movie, The Help. I've had more conversations about that than I choose to even think about. Did you see the movie?
No, I have not.
You did not see the movie. So when are you going to? Did you see Red Tails? Did you see War Horse? Do you go to movies, Billy Bill?
I had one of the original Tuskegee Airmen on my show, and I was invited to a private screening with he and his wife to see the movie, and I was gonna go, but it was on a school night. I couldn't go. I decided not to go because the kids would have been just totally disappointed if they were not a part of that, and the wife. So, needless to say, I didn't go. Now, again, he's been on the show. I've had conversation with him a few times since then. We've met with him at Starbucks about, 3 weeks ago? About a month ago. And he's coming over for dinner, I think, my mother's house in about 2 weeks. The last movie I went to see was Why Did I Get Married?
Why Did I Get Married? But movies are influencing our lives. Television is influencing our lives. The hip-hop generation is influencing our lives. It is all visual.
Right.
It's all about the visual and the tools that we have now.
Right.
So we have strayed a long way away from that era you were talking about earlier, and the era that I was raised in.
Right.
Okay, we got to solve this issue.
The reason I don't go to the movies, Esther, because I don't think it depicts a fair balance of who we are as African Americans. It's so far to the left. The only way we could get a good role in a movie and get an Oscar, they give Oscars, right?
Yes.
Grammys.
Yes, one of the actresses was given an Oscar.
Right, and he had to present one?
One.
Okay, before that was Denzel. He had to be a thug and all that other stuff, right?
Yes.
Either we're not making movies of substance or movies that have no appeal. It's not a real balance of who we are. So we, in order to get on the big screen, we have to be a drug, a pimp, a buffoon, coonery. I mean, Spike Lee speaks very highly of this. And then you're a journalist. You're a journalist. You're rare. And I know you won't let just anything come into your studio and talk about being on your show.
No, I have a standard. I have a standard, but I also keep in the back of my mind that as a race of people, we are worth $1 trillion. Now, with $1 trillion as a race of people, we could very well be on the big screen in the role that we want to be portrayed in.
I agree.
So I'm just wondering, and in your humble opinion, why can't we do that?
We can.
What is the problem?
Well, we're selfish. With no disrespect to Tyler Perry, he's doing an awesome job as a businessman, I think. He's trying to cover here, and I've not studied this, I'm speaking off the cuff. His movies, I think he just had one released about 2 weeks ago. That seemed like a better balance of middle African, middle America, Black American, a good image. And I think he had one once before where this guy was a lawyer or something. Was that what I get?
That wasn't. He always has an educated person in the movie, but he also has some of the things that happen in his lifetime. But the other thing you can't dismiss, those movies hire a couple of thousand people.
Absolutely. So that's good and bad, even with the buffoonery stuff.
Now you're going across the middle with me. Now you can't be good and bad. I gotta have.
Well,
what is your gut feel?
Hopefully, he will evolve to the point to where he doesn't need to present us in a buffoonery and a career. He doesn't need to present us in that image. If he's going to do that, hopefully he will do produce more movies with a more balance of who Black America is. Because if he doesn't, that's what we believe that we are. But remember, I believe thinking requires too much energy. So it's easy to take in order for me to be a Black person, I gotta walk with my pants hanging down. I gotta speak a certain way. I gotta strive for anything less than excellency.
Well, I totally agree because
knowing it comes from that.
Yes, I know. The image now of a Black woman is we cannot speak plain English. We have to be really good booty shakers and wear a lot of makeup and the tattoos, and that's the image.
Right.
And when you start speaking great language, but then the big question comes back: do we really have a Black America? 1 in 5 children today are mixed.
I think we have a Black America, but it's a broad. How do you define Black America? It exists.
The definition is changing.
Like any other word.
Oh, like any other word.
Yes. Just when we grew up, I had conversation with some young men about this recently. When you and I grew up, racial slurs. Yeah. You know, those were fighting words. People probably lost their lives for being called that. You know what I mean? Then now, in my generation, they would still fighting words. But now the younger generation see those as a term of endearment. You got white guys calling Black guys that word. You got Mexicans calling each other that word. I mean, it's like it's a word that's used so loose. It's in our records and tapes, and we sell it our artists. You know, it's like, wow, what done happened?
What done happened, right? What done happened?
So we think it's okay to say it and do it. It's bad. I mean, that's another reason why I want my children to think for themselves. I want my children to be educated on a global level, because that may be the way some of us are in America, but we're not that way in other parts of the world.
Immigration. Are we making a big deal out of that because we can? Or do you believe in the theory that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof?
I think we are making a big deal out of it because if we don't, and we should, if we don't, it's going to cost somebody some money.
Well, I'll ask the question. Why don't they just open up the borders and let the world be what it's supposed to be?
Well,
now that makes you, does this question make you a liberal Republican, or does it make you? Well, I mean, I just want to know everything there is to know in this short period of time about Billy Fields, and I'm sure this question is popping up in the minds of some of your huge audience that's out there.
And I agree. some of it to me is common sense though. If you open the borders to any country, no telling what's going to end up coming in there. People could easily infiltrate the country that may not have good deeds, number one. Number two, if there's a language barrier, it changes the trajectory of what our current educational system is going to be. If there's a reproduction and there's kids that come through the system, you have to be prepared and ready for that. I remember when former President George Bush was the governor of the state of Texas.
Right.
They were anti-bilingual education at that time. But when he became president, he changed his mind on it. He changed his position on the issue.
Did he really?
Yes.
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 But he had reason to do that. I'm beginning to think, okay, is that really a fair statement to make to America? Only because immigration, we have immigration because most of the doctors now are not white Anglo-Saxon male.
Right.
Most of our real educators in the world are not white, are not African American.
Right.
The world is changing anyway.
Right.
So why is immigration an issue with the Republicans?
Again,
Or do you believe that?
it goes back to dollars and cents. At some point, let's say, using this as an example, I don't know if you ever had to deal with, let's say, Parkland Hospital.
Okay.
Most people that don't have insurance usually go to a county hospital, regardless if it's in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston, or whatever. There's a county hospital. At some point, if there's a reproduction of an individual, if they don't have insurance, they're probably going to have the child there, right?
Right. Right.
The infrastructure is not there to handle that. Just using that one situation as an example, I think. Number two, again, the school system doesn't have the infrastructure. The tax base is not in position to handle putting together an infrastructure to handle that. So the government has to intervene and maintain some level of control. Otherwise, if it gets out of control, it would be chaos.
Are we out of control at the moment?
Sounds
like you're saying, no, Esther, we are not out of control.
I don't think we're out of control, but I think we have the potential to being out of control if it's not brought to the forefront of the conscience of the minds of American people.
In your interpretation, what are the two strengths we have in the world today?
Two. Well, we're still a world superpower. We have one of the greatest armed forces in the world. The second is we have a president that is well or better received throughout the world than any other president in the history of this country.
Is he going to serve a second term?
That's a good question. If people don't get out to vote, he won't.
But he can simply use the last strategy 4 years ago.
It won't work this time.
Why not?
Because I think a lot of the black people, let's be clear, black people didn't get President Obama elected.
True. Very true. Because the under 25, they really got elected.
Correct. So many of them, they were sold on the meal ticket of change. Did anything really change?
We changed presidents?
For them.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, I see your point.
Right. So then they will see it as rhetoric. The issue that they're going to have, though, if the Republicans don't have a right candidate that they feel like they can relate to, Newt Gingrich, I don't think they can relate to him. Romney, I think he's a bit arrogant.
Anytime you mention on public television that your wife has 2 Cadillacs, that's just a little pompous.
Right, and then the $10,000 bet in the middle of a debate. You can't do that. You can't do that. I mean, the Clintons, I don't know if they were millionaires or wealthy people at the time when they ran, but they never flaunted it. Oh, President Obama, I'm sure he's a millionaire right now. He doesn't flaunt that kind of stuff. And people they want to see success, but they don't want it to be flaunted. You know what I mean?
They don't. And they don't want to see that. I guess one of the comments I just had with Trent, I had a conversation with Trent is brilliant. You need to promote him and give him a better job, pay him more
Well,
money.
he's the college student.
That's great.
If he's making more money, he'll drop out of college.
And you don't want that to happen.
No, we need to keep him on the show. And we need to keep him in college.
I know we're running out of time. How much time do we have here, Trent? Because I've got to get back to 1 minute. You're kidding me. I need to get back to the real Billy Fields, and we stopped at college days. I went into your corporate experience and the fact that you had this lucrative expense account that we all enjoyed. But you went through a phase called metrosexual.
Right.
You had your nails done, and you had just a military image.
Right.
Just everything perfectly in line.
Right.
What was that all about?
Just being who I am. Society gave that name.
Society gave that name?
Yes.
Were you criticized for it or applauded for it?
I laughed. It was, so.
I loved it.
It's entertaining. I didn't care about that. I think as hard as I work, the stress that I've had to deal with over life, there's nothing wrong with letting somebody buff my nails if I wanted to. I had to pay. They didn't pay.
Wow.
You know, if I wanted an acupuncture or somebody giving me a massage from head to toe, what's wrong with that?
I have no problem with it.
If I want to get a facial because I don't want my skin to look jacked up, what's wrong with that?
But that's your attitude about it.
Absolutely.
Is that for our general information, or do you think you're coming across just a little bit arrogant?
Yes.
Do you have an arrogant nature at all?
Some people perceive it as only because they can't relate.
But you're so lovable.
Absolutely. I'm one of the best people.
I agree with you. I'm one of the best people I know. But you know, I don't know why they ever call it metrosexual, because the years I was modeling, I modeled for years, all of the guys were given the same treatment the girls were given.
Exactly.
And we were all in the same room, so it really wasn't a big deal.
Right.
They made it a big deal.
I think it's part of really a lifestyle, because most men, you know, some of the circles of men that I ran.
Yes.
Those guys did the same thing and still do today. I mean, I can call one of my buddies now. If he's not in Dallas, he's probably in Cabo St. Lucas, probably sitting back drinking a Mai Tai, getting a pedicure.
That's living a life. But you bring up a good point. Stress at the top.
Right.
Okay. Final question, and Trent is here giving us a countdown. Is that? Okay. Okay, we're gonna have to have this other show that we've been talking about. Part two. But corporate America, corporate Mongos that make $300,000 and $400,000. You were on your way there. Seriously.
Right.
That's an honest statement.
Right.
And you decided, I don't want to go there.
Right.
Tell me the Billy Fields theory behind that.
It's about 3 or 4 different reasons. The fact that you're black and you're the only one that's invited to the party. You're the only one that everywhere you go, you see the skin tone of people change when you walk in, or they alter their conversation.
Are you saying they turned red?
Yes.
But they're friendly.
Oh, absolutely. I'm friendly too.
Okay. But that's a facade? Is that what you're?
Oftentimes it is. Secondly, the support that you don't get. They say that they will, but they usually don't, in order to move the needle forward when it's time to, projections, budgets, and sometimes your area of division could be thrown a couple of crumbs.
And you're supposed to advance with the crumbs.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
territory doesn't change.
Again, I didn't come from that. And third, you're a big old target. Not only from those environments, pretty much everywhere you go, even amongst black Americans, you're a target. And sometimes they're looking for help, but you sometimes really can't help them. Again, I never mentioned this to you, but oftentimes I would go check in a hotel with the wife and the kids just to get away from everything on the weekends. And we would be right here in Dallas or in Fort Worth somewhere. Or even when I went out to dinner, we would go to places where we thought no one would recognize. We'd go, just places where African Americans normally wouldn't go.
But you created that.
I did.
You spent a lot of time, energy, money, stress to create that.
Right.
But I do understand it, believe me.
I was out of balance, actually. I was out of balance because I was chasing the dollar and not really I was not spiritually connected. I was
You were getting away from that.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that ministers talk about today, is that we are just too busy to give God any of our time. We have forgotten
Right.
what we were there for in the first place.
Right.
Well, it's been a real pleasure.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. I had a ball.
I have to get you back for the second interview.
I had a ball with interviewing you because I watched the growth of Billy Fields.
Right.
I think I was already in television when I met you with AT&T Cable.
Right.
And I have to put in a plug for the Ester Davis show. We're on Thursday mornings from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. We're on that time for a reason. I like the time slot because I like all of the type A personalities that are making $80,000 to $140,000 a year. So when people tell me they're not up that early, I know exactly what I have. But anyway, we're in a couple of states. We've been grandly blessed, and it's been a pleasure. I do expect to do this again.
I look forward to it. I'd love to come out to your show.
I'm going to have you on.
Soon?
Ester Davis with Billy Fields. He's coming out to the Ester Davis show.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Trent, you're wonderful. Ask for a raise.
Ester
Oh, wow.
I enjoyed it.
Why did your voice get lower?
I don't know. I need to watch that. I noticed over the last couple of years.
You gotta watch that.
Yeah, I noticed that when because I shoot straight.
You gotta shoot straight
my voice,
all the time.
I know.
Or make up for it with a laugh or something.
I know. This is my coach.
Yeah, I see.
No.
For
He's
real,
doing great.
for real.
He's doing great.
All right, that's
Awesome job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
next,
you.
brother. So those 5 songs, let's go and pull those up, and we'll bring Kevin in. We'll get through our part.
Already done.
Yes, you're welcome to stay.
No, I have another appointment, Billy.
I owe you.
Do you have a business card I can get a hold of so I can email you all the information?
Oh, yeah. Hold on a second.
Now you broadcasting from right across the street over here?
No. Across the street is Master Control for Ion Media.
Right. Okay.
4 channels.
Okay.
And what